The Soviet Union of the 20th century was a country in transition. Born out of the Russian Revolution of 1917, the young communist state was grappling with the challenges of transforming a vast multi-ethnic empire into a modern industrialized society. The early years of the Soviet rule were marked by the conflict and upheaval. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, had seized power in the wake of World War I and the collapse of the Tsarist regime. The country was racked by the civil war as various factions lead for control. The Bolsheviks emerged victorious, establishing the Soviet Union as a one-party state. Under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union embarked on the ambitious program of industrialization and collectivism in the 1930s. The country was transformed from the large agrarian society into a major industrial power, with the focus on heavy industry and military production. However, this transformation came at the heavy cost, with millions of lives lost due to famine, forced labor, and political purges. The Soviet Union's foreign policy during the period was shaped by the sense of isolation and insecurity. The country was still recovering from the devastations of World War I and the Civil War, and faced hostility from the capitalist powers in the West. The Soviet Union thought to build alliances with other socialist states, but found itself increasingly isolated on the world stage. The rise of the Nazi Germany in the 1930s posed a direct threat to the Soviet security. Hitler's regime was openly hostile to communism and thought to expand German territory into Eastern Europe. The Soviet Union attempted to form an anti-fascist alliance with France and the United Kingdom, but these efforts were stymied by the policy of appeasement pursued by the Western powers. As tensions continued to rise in the mid-1930s, the Soviet Union faced internal challenges as well. Stalin's regime pursued a ruthless campaign of political purges targeting perceived enemies of the state within the Communist Party, the military, and other sectors of society. By 1936, the Soviet Union was facing an uncertain future. The country had made significant strides in industrial and military development, but the high cost to its people. The rise of Nazi Germany posed a direct threat to the Soviet security, while the country's internal politics remained turbulent. The stage was set for a pivotal moment in the world history, as the Soviet Union and other powers grappled with the looming specter of World War II. But nevertheless, the Soviet Union was still a capable and formidable force on the world stage. It had vast lands and huge amounts of resources, from the fertile lands of Ukraine to the vast untouchable tundras in Siberia. On the 1st of January 1936, Stalin had ordered a new military doctrine of mass assault, which would focus on establishing a massive superiority in firepower and human resource on the front lines. Thus, the new military doctrine was used to suit the needs of the army. A great emphasis was put on infantry equipment, support equipment, towed artillery, and towed anti-air weapons. It was the midst of implementing the second phase of the fifth-year plan, which focused on expanding industrial production and modernizing infrastructure. As a result, the country was engaged in a significant effort to build new factories and upgrade existing ones. In addition, the USSR focused on improving the efficiency of the industrial production by investing in modern technologies and modernizing production methods. This involved the adoption of new machinery and equipment, as well as the implementation of scientific management principles and quality control measures. The heavy industry methods were increasingly productive and were not downgraded by the Great Depression due to the Soviet isolation, but for the Stalin himself, the new threat was looming over his shoulders, which was the Great Trotsky Plot. Stalin had long been suspicious of Leon Trotsky, a former leader of the Bolshevik Party and a vocal critic of his regime. Trotsky had been exiled from the Soviet Union in 1929 and had since become a vocal opponent of Stalin's policies, advocating for a more democratic and internationalistic approach to socialism. In 1934, a prominent Bolshevik, Sergei Kirov, was assassinated in Leningrad, setting off a wave of political purges across the Soviet Union. Stalin used the pretext of the Kirov assassination to purge his political opponents and consolidate his power within the party. Stalin and his supporters accused Trotsky of organizing a conspiracy to overthrow the Soviet government and establish a new regime under his leadership. Trotsky was accused of collaborating with fascist powers and engaging in terrorist activities aimed to undermine the Soviet Union. The Trotsky's plot became a central focus on Stalin's political purges. As part of the investigation into Trotskys in the military, the NKVD had uncovered evidence that General Andrei Yermenko has in the past made several comments critical of Comrade and pointing out the great contribution that Lev Trotsky made to the revolution during the Civil War. During the interrogation, Andrei Yermenko initially professed admiration and loyalty too, but eventually cracked and revealed that he had been contacted by Trotsky's agents to form a counter-revolutionary cell inside the military, which would execute acts of sabotage against the Red Army. With thousands of people arrested, tortured and executed on charges of being Trotskys, the purges continued throughout the late 1930s, within Stalin's using the context of Trotsky's plot to eliminate any real or pursued threats to his regime. While the heavy industry methods of the fifth-year plan continued to be productive, the human cost of the purges was immense. Millions of people were displaced, imprisoned or executed, and the Soviet Union became a totalitarian state with no tolerance for dissident or opposition. In the mid-1938, the Soviet industry had started to increase the industrial military potential by increasing military factories for infantry equipment, artillery, anti-air, trucks and support equipment. Thus, this would allow the Soviet Union to effectively reinforce and equip the new recruits which are being conscripted for the national security of the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics. Nevertheless, after the implementation of such repressions, the Soviet Politburo could focus on expanding and reforming an integral part of the Soviet security. The new approach of mass assault would be an important consideration to the Soviet arms industry, as the focus is shifted towards enlisting new recruits and expanding the Soviet army up to 10 million active personnel. The Comrade Stalin approved the direction of such actions to increase the human capital in the army, but this would take years to accomplish such numbers. As the Soviets were industrializing, the German foreign policy had become more radicalized towards other nations threatening their national security. One of such victims of German revanchism was Austria and Czechoslovakia, as both nations had ceased to exist due to the policy of appeasement posed by the Allies as the main foreign policy doctrine towards Germany. It would be natural for the Germans to take more as time progresses. The Soviet Union official position on Germany was pretty harsh, as both nations would critique each other and perceive themselves as natural enemies, but on the 15th of June 1939, the German Foreign Minister Ribbentrop had proposed a non-aggression treaty between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. Furthermore, the Nazis also proposed a secret document of splitting Europe into two spheres of influence. The Germans proposed to split Poland into two and give Soviet Union the Baltics and the occupied territories of Moldova. Molotov accepted this pact. Only a couple of months later, the German Wehrmacht invaded Poland. The new German tactics were innovative. The Blitzkrieg tactic would focus on cutting the supply lines and achieving strategic victories before the High Command had any ability to react. This tactic would paralyze the opposing forces and would allow quick and lightning-fast victories on the battlefield. Poland had no chance in this war, as the Soviet Union also prepared forces for the liberation of Jews from the Polish oppression. Nevertheless, Poles resisted brutally by holding every inch, every meter, every street, every province. but the Polish geography had its own toll on the outcome of the war. The Polish fell in a month. Poland had once again vanished from the map. The gathering storm will soon become a typhoon. It was the end of October. The Germans had savagely pushed Dutch, Belgian, and even French forces closer and closer to Paris. The German spearhead was unstoppable. The Allies, with the help of Britain, were losing ground inch by inch. As the Germans rapidly took Netherlands, the French army rushed to help Belgium, but nevertheless, the German forces continued to push fearlessly and professionally by using their best and most elite mechanized units. Seconds turned to minutes, minutes into hours, hours into days, days into weeks. It was clear the German victory was imminent. On the 21st of November 1939, the German columns of tanks appeared in Paris. It was only a matter of hours until the French forces capitulated. As the German columns of tanks rolled triumphantly into Paris on the fateful day of November 21st, 1939, the world stood witness to the moment that would shape the course of history. The fall of France sent shockwaves throughout the international community, leaving no doubt of Germany's military might and the seemingly unstoppable advance of the Third Reich. Yet, in the face of the devastating blow, the history is far from over. The events unfolding on the stage of World War II are far from reaching their climax. The Soviet Union, with its vast land and untapped resources, watches closely as the tide of war continues to shift. Behind the scenes, the plans are being set into motion, strategies devised, and the Soviet Union prepares to make its move. While the German war machine may seem invincible, there are those who believe in the resistance and determination of the Soviet people. The world holds its breath as the Soviet Union readies itself for the challenges that lie ahead. In the depths of Kremlin, decisions are made, alliances are forged, and the next chapter of the epic struggle is about to unfold. Will the Soviet Union be able to withstand the onslaught of the Third Reich? Can the military doctrine of mass assault turn the tide in their favor? Only time will tell. With anticipation building, the story continues as the world braces for the next episode of the grasping saga. The fate of nations hangs in the balance, and the outcome will shape the destiny of the world. Stay tuned for the next thrilling installment, where the new battles will be fought, heroes will rise, and the epic struggle between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany will reach its climatic crescendo. Join me on YouTube and hit the subscribe button along with the bell notification so you will never miss an episode of the captivating historical journey. Get ready to immerse yourself in the unfolding drama as we delve deeper into the gripping tale of courage, sacrifice, and the fight for freedom against Germany. Subscribe now and be part of the adventure. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.